Left-handed. Okay. Hi, I'm Kip Moravec, or Kipton Moravec, and I've been doing this mesh and things for quite a while, probably about 4 or 5 years, and we're active with it down in Texas, but it's just starting to explode into the rest of the country, and we're finding places that we never even heard of that are doing it. All right, so there we are. Let's see if this works. Click. All right, what I'm going to cover today is what is mesh, HSMM-MESH, what routers to use. The main part of this focus of this is to tell you how we're going to load the software, and I'm going to go step by step so that there's no question. And then how to configure it, and then where to go from here. And that's what we're going to cover today. Okay, HSMM is short for high-speed multimedia. It's a general term. It was coined back, I think, in the early 2000s. And it's digital radio, but it's not digital radio as normally we think of with keyboard communications. It's not that. We support everything. Because we're using the high speed, we can do digital voice, we can do digital video, we can do keyboard communications if that's what you want. We can do file transfers, and we can do email, and we can surf the internet. Pretty much we have a kind of like an Ethernet backbone over the air. All right, to be able to do all this stuff, we need high bandwidth, which means higher frequencies. So for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to take a subset of all of HSMM, and we're going to be talking about using modified Wi-Fi equipment, and generally in the 2.4 gigahertz, and we call our software HSMM-MESH. We've trademarked it so that if it says HSMM-MESH, it's interoperable. And that's the only reason we trademarked it, so that somebody else can't call it that and become something completely different. Here's an example of me using it. We had a public service event called the Richardson Wild Ride, which is this weekend. I'm not down there this weekend. And it's a wild ride for cancer. And one of the things they wanted to have was they wanted to get pictures out at the rest stops. One rest stop was about at the 22-mile turnaround for the 44-mile loop of the thing, and the other one was out at about 35 miles in the 60-mile loop of this bike rally. And they wanted to get pictures sent to big screens up at the start and finish lines so they could see what's going on out at the course. Well, this is in the middle of nowhere. This is down by the dam. There's a little park there, but beyond that, there's nothing. Basically, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have, and we were real low, close to the lake. Up here was a school, but it was up on a hill. But we couldn't get access into the school, and actually, we were across the street from the school. And so we found one of our hams, W5LT, had a tower over here, 70-foot tower, and we put a node there. And from that one node, we were able to hit both of these sites. One was this rest stop 2 is what we called it. That's about 4.5 miles. The rest stop 3, which is over by the school, is about 9.7 miles. And we had really good communications. About 10 megabits per second links. It's fast, and let me explain how fast. The best way is keep things in the same units. We're talking 10 to 54 megabits per second. If you're talking about packet radio, that's 0.0012 megabits per second. If you're talking about PAC-TOR 3, which is the high-speed HF, well, that's 0.003 megabits per second. D-Star, the high-speed 1.2 gigahertz stuff, for the DD, that's 0.128 megabits per second. Okay, so more of you are more familiar with your home units. We got FiOS, which is 2 to 15, up 15 to 25 down. You know, we're fast. We're in that range. You know, T1s is what everybody used to say was amazingly pleasingly fast. That's 1.5 megabits. And then you've got your D cells. And of course, you get down here, dial up, and we're way, way faster now. All right, what routers work? It's basically the Linksys WRT series. They all have Broadcom processors in them, and they've all got more memory. Once they got past version 4, version 5, they shrunk the memory. They changed from Linux to another type of Linux, or Unix, and shrunk the memory, and now our stuff doesn't fit in that anymore. So these are the ones that work at the moment. There's a list on our website. The new ones are the WRT54GLs. Basically what that is, it's a version 4 that they decided not to change because there was a lot of people using it. And so the recommendation is stay with the WRT54GL if you're buying new. That's the safest. We are working on expanding this to more routers. We found the problem that was keeping us from doing it, and it's in the software, because the other processors are Little Endian, we're Big Endian, and there was some software issues between Big Endian and Little Endian that the software guys accidentally put in there in some of the security stuff. All right, so now you know you got your router. Go to our website, hsmm-mesh.org, and get the correct bin firmware for your model of router. What Linksys did was they were looking for one little code in the firmware that said this software is for this router. All the rest of the software is exactly the same, except for that one byte. And that's why we've got so many different versions, is we've got to match that one byte when we initially load it into their software. After that, once we've got an existing mesh node, we use what we call a TRX file, because we don't have to look for that byte anymore. Our software doesn't care. So that's why there's so many different versions. And so this is basically a cutout from the web page, so that basically tells you, use this one if you got a USR 5461. So that's on the HSMM-MESH.org website is where you get the software. All right. I recommend, especially if you've got something that you picked up at the flea market or something like that, just hit that reset button for 10 seconds, and that gets you back to a factory default. That way you know what you've got. All right, now you connect your PC to the router and use the LAN port. There's 4 LAN ports, 1 WAN port. Use the LAN port. And then open your favorite browser. It can be Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, it doesn't matter. Go to the router. Usually it's HTTP 192.168.1.1. That's pretty much the defaults. If it doesn't work, you can go to command line, enter ipconfig, and use the number for the gateway, which is the number this thing gave you. And when you're hooking this up, have this and your computer are the only things connected together. Don't put it on with the rest of your net yet. It'll pop up a login window, and the login, after you push that button for 10 seconds, the login default is blank, and the password is admin. So that lets you get into the router. And this is what the screen looks like. And right up here is a button for admin administration, and that's where you want to go. That'll get you to this screen. Well, that's not where you want to stop. You want to go here to this other window, or this other menu that says firmware upgrade. Now, when you downloaded that software, you have to remember, where did I put it? Mine fortunately goes in downloads. And then, so you use this, browse to that file, select that file, and when it's all set, you hit this upgrade button, and then you wait. And it's usually about 2 to 3 minutes is how long you have to wait. And so, and this is what you want to see. Upgrade is successful. Do not unplug, do not interrupt, don't do anything, because if you get halfway through and screw it up, more often than not you will do what we call as brick the router, which means it's as good as a brick. You can't do anything with it anymore. So there are ways to recover that are on the website, but it takes special equipment and a lot more work. So when the upgrade's successful, you say continue. Continue. All right. Most of the time, Windows won't recognize that you changed your IP address. So you're going to have to get into a command window. Hopefully, you know how to do that. You can go to your accessories, and then there's a command prompt, or you can go to the run and type CMD, and that'll pull up this window. And you'll have to do an IP configure /release. That'll tell it to remove the IP address that the router gave it before, and then IP config renew, which says go out, give me a new address. And this is what you should see, something very similar to this. You'll see, if you're the only one out there, it'll probably give you a 5, but it'll be a 172.27.05 or something between 5 and 100. And your default gateway, and this is now your router, is 172.27.01. All right, now what do we do? All right, so you can either do HTTP back to your browser, go to HTTP, and you can type localnode:8080, or the number we just saw, 172.27.01.8080. And the first time you do this, you'll need to log in. And your login is root, and your password is HSMM. And it's usually root because that's what we usually use in Linux or Unix, is the root password. So in Explorer, this is what it looks like, or Firefox, I mean, this is what the pop-up window looks like. I put in root, and I'm in the process of typing the number when I grab this. All right, now this is your setup page. All right, first thing you want to do is you want to name your node, and I would recommend a name. We've defaulted to having your name as your call sign, and then a dash, and then whatever you want for the node name. I have like N1, N2, N3 for my different nodes. I have one that's up on a tower in St. Paul, so I go AE5IB-St. Paul. But that's required to put a new node name in. And the other thing is it also won't let you go on until you've put in a new password. Change the password from the default HSMM. So change it to something that you want. Everything else is optional. Those are the only two things you have to do. First thing let me point out to you is it will come up with an IP in the 10 space. It'll come up with an IP address based on your MAC address. So it'll just generate one. Because that's such a big space, the odds of you hitting somebody else that has the same IP address is pretty low. We haven't seen it happen yet. The SSID is very, very important. That tells the nodes whether they can talk to each other or not, because it'll only match somebody that is on HSMM-MESH Node. If you have any other name here, you will not link up to another HSMM-MESH node unless they both have the same name. And there's some cases where we do that, but in this case, if you want to talk to the rest, everybody else, keep that the same. Okay, most of the WRT54G routers have two antennas. They have a right one and a left one. Unfortunately, Linksys was never consistent as to which was right and which was left. So you have to experiment for your particular model. And it, like I said, it even changed between versions of models. So diversity means use both antennas, or you can use the right antenna or the left antenna, or the right antenna or the left antenna, depending on which model you have. Usually when we're outside, we use maximum power, which is 19 dBm, which is about 87 or 78 milliwatts is what we're using. And I did those 10-mile links with 78 milliwatt transmit power. If you're in a room and playing like we do at some of our Digital Tuesdays that we have, everybody goes down to about 3 to 5 dBms, because we can oversaturate by having 10 or 12 in a room about the space of this area. Most of the time you do not have to do the distance. I do the distance when I'm over, when I'm at about 5 miles or more. What this does is normally it's automatic, but it'll give you a little bit longer delay before it expects a return, so it doesn't say, oops, no, he didn't hear me, let me retransmit. And so when I'm doing more than 2 to 5 miles, I will put that, and it's in meters. So, you know, I use 20,000 for 10 miles. The only other thing that you have to really worry about, I mean, I wouldn't mess with this because everybody's used to that, and that's what it is. If you want to hook up to the internet, your node will connect to the internet if you plug it into your home network on the WAN port, the WAN port. If you want other people in the mesh to be able to come through yours and go talk to it, you click that, and it will tell them that you know, you're advertising, hey, I've got an internet connection, it's open to be used. So once you've got everything set up, the first time, you save your changes and reboot. Save changes, reboot. Up, there it is. I even said that. Save changes. It takes about maybe a minute to save the changes, and then you hit the reboot. That reboots everything, makes everything come back up. So in this case, I did click it as a mesh gateway, so that anybody else on the net can come through mine. And the nice thing about this is if one is on the net, everybody's on the net. If two are on the net, everybody's on the net, but they always go to the one that's the closest by hops. So the one the least amount of hops to get to the internet is the one that it'll use. So it's a good way to, it separates itself. That's it. Now you've got a working mesh node. And this will tell you what your Wi-Fi address is. You really don't have to care about that. The LAN address, we pretty much know that is 172.27.01. And in this case, I'm plugged into my home network, which is 192.168.2, and my home network had given me an address of 5. Now, some people are saying, why did they go with such a weird number here? Well, this is an A-class address, this is a B-class address, this is a C-class address. And we went with this way because you have to have different IP addresses, segments, up the line. So if I was a 192.168.2.1 here, the guy up above me wouldn't know, does that go to him or does that stay on my network? And so that's why we've gone with a B class, because hardly anybody uses a B class. And so that's why this is it, or this is that way. All right, let's go back. All right, you've got some things here. I'm only going to cover mesh status. That's the one I use the most. If you want, you can also do a Wi-Fi scan. That's if you don't have anybody else to talk to. You can at least go out and see all the other Wi-Fi nodes out there that are available. But this is for the mesh status, and that's the one I use the most. And this really has 4 areas. At first, it's telling you your local host. That's you. And in this case, it was AE5IB. And then it showed me who my neighbors were. And in this case, I had AE5IB my tunnel, which wasn't completely working at this time. Otherwise, you would have seen a lot more stuff. But the tunnel, what the tunnel does is it lets us connect segments, one segment to another segment over the internet, as opposed to over the air. So, for instance, if this was working, I would see a whole bunch of nodes from Austin right down here as remote nodes, and so I could connect through the tunnel to and their tunnel to all the Austin nodes, and it's not as reliable as I'd like it, but we're working on it. So at the moment, it was down. N5OOM, that was another router just like mine. The link quality tells you how good your quality of communications is. 100% means you send a packet, you get a packet back. If it's 50%, that means you basically have to send 2 packets to get a good one through. 100% is what you really, really want. But you can live with 45. I've lived with 45 in some cases. So the remote node, so the current neighbors are everybody that's 1 hop away, or anyone that you can see directly. So if you can see, so my node can see AE5IB, my node can see N5OOM. Remote nodes are ones that are more than 1 hop away. So I can't see them directly, but through one of my neighbors, I can see these. And that's what would be in this link, in this window. Now, if you had a neighbor in either case, and he all of a sudden disappeared, he would show up in this column. So that means you saw him, and it'll tell you how long ago it was that you last saw him with a packet. And so this, for me, this is probably the most important screen. And normally it has 3 buttons up here. There's a stop, quit, and a auto. And I've got auto pushed. And when auto means it's going to keep updating. So it'll keep updating it. Okay, so now the thing is, what's the next steps? Well, probably the most interesting application that we've got, and it's a little bit more than I can explain on this one, but we have an IRC chat client. And what our EC for North Texas section says, that is the most amazing application, because without having any computer or anything else, computers on each of the things can go in and chat with each other using the actual router as the chat server. And there's on our website, it shows how to set this up, and it's not for the faint of heart yet. We're working on a graphical way to set it up. It's not built yet. We also have a small FTP server, so you can actually exchange files up to a server, and then multiple people can pull it down. And the server is also on the router. Of course, you can open up the router and put a regular PC behind it, and everybody can access that server if you open the firewall. and that's probably preferable for big files. But if you're stuck in a situation where that's all you got, that's what you got. Let me go back a couple pictures. Where to go? Oh, that's what these services are. Now, if I've got on some of my servers, I can, or on some of my web browsers, if I clicked on that, it would pop me right up into the web browser, into the chat server or the chat application, and I'm ready to chat in the right room. Explorer doesn't do that, but some of the other ones do. And then this is also a small FTP server. You click on that, it brings you up, and it actually puts you in the directory so you can copy files. So those are services that we can show, and it's in this mesh status, so you can actually see who's got what service. All right, like I say, to do any of this other stuff, check the mesh website for instructions. There's lots of stuff out there. There's also my presentations that go into other aspects of mesh. Again, our website's this. Go to meetings. Unfortunately, the two that I know about are in Texas. But there's more meetings forming around the country, and what we do is we get together and we share ideas, share things we've learned, and I do it twice a month. Down in Austin, they do it once a month, and like I said, there's more forming around the country. We have in Dallas, we have a Dallas area working group. Was this DAWG, HSMM? If you do DAWG, SM, subscribe to Yahoo groups, that'll get you in the group. There's also one in Austin. This is the main group. And they're Austin HSMM Development. Subscribe to Yahoo groups. And there's more groups forming all over the country. We keep, in this group, we keep finding more and more and more. And, people we never even heard of before. Okay, that's all I've got. Any questions? Yes?